Now let's see how to get user finished games. We need, of course, a username, for example, James, and we can see in sort key it starts with game finished and then with some IDs. So let's query again on table tic-tac-toe database. Partition key will be user and then James, but sort key should not be equal to begin with game finished, and yeah, we will get all finished games for that user. In this example, we have only one, so let's see how we can implement this. First, we can go to our client and add a method query by partition key, and sort key begins with. Everything will be more or less similar,
except for key condition expression we have to specify that we want and begins with, and we have to add those parentheses.
Expression attribute values. Partition key is the same, but sort key is sort key. Begins with, and the last thing is how we want the data to be sorted. For now, it is really irrelevant, but for example in this direction. So you can write here true or false. And based on that, it can be sorted alphabetically from A or from the last letter that we have. We want to go to the user and write getFinishedGames method. Grab items from our database client. So database client, query, but now we want to query by partition key and sort key begins with, and we want to search for some username. And how can we grab username? It is here in our self, because it is not a class method, it will be just a normal method. So self.username. And we want sort key, which begins with game finished. And after that, let's do games. Let's initialize it with an empty list and then iterate through every item. For item in items, append to games. And what we want to append is a new game. So game, and how do we create a game? We create it from item, game, dot from item, and we pass an item. And this will actually create a new game object. And yeah, after that, we can just return games. Let's go to app.py. So let's say that we want to have games, and for that we want to get user James like we saw earlier. And what do we want with that James? We want James.getFinishedGames. That's the method that we implemented, and it will be games. And after that, let's just print all these games. So let's go here, run it again. Of course, error. I'm always creating some errors, so syntax error, near sort, key, blah, blah, blah. So it is in client.py. Let's double check it. Oh, yep, here it is not equal. We need to write comma. Just a thing from documentation, nothing really interesting. Let's run it again. Game is not defined. Of course, in our user class here, we are calling game, so we need to import that game. So from game, import game, and voila, we have a list of our finished games for a user named James. In this case, it is only one game, but it's possible to have more than one, and we will see that later.
This works perfectly as it is, but we can add one fancy touch at the end of this video. Let's rewrite the for loop in a single line using a list comprehension. If you don't want to bother with that, you can keep the original for loop. It works just fine. Here we are iterating over every item in items, and for each one we create a game object. Finally, we return the list of all the games.